you've asked a question about interest rates. Now, interest rates really are intricately tied to money because the interest rate is the price of money. So if you can imagine, if you want to borrow some money and you want to do something with that money, the opportunity cost of holding on to that money is the interest rate. The longer you hold on to that money and you don't do anything with that money, anything productive with that money that can generate a bit more money and earn an income, the interest rate's like a cost. So we have a situation now where interest rates all around the world, every single central banker, every single politician, every single economist talks about stimulus and about how we have to have low interest rates. Well, why do we have to fix the price of money? Why do we have to have low interest rates? Why can't we have a market in money just like a market in anything else? If you wanted to sell your house and you were told you are only allowed to sell your house for X dollars, you would protest. Or your produce, or you wanted to anything. It's illegal to have cartels. It's illegal to have price fixing in supermarkets, to have price fixing in the electricity system. We're all told about competition, about diversifying things so we have competition, so we don't have rigging of prices in almost everything. Except, guess what? The price of the most important commodity of all of them, which prices all the other commodities, which is the price of money, which is the interest rate. This, somehow, it seems quite okay that you've got a cabal of a few people who decide on everyone's behalf what the price of money is. And that is when you hear about interest rates going down, about how they have to be lowered, about how we need stimulus with lower interest rates, about how lower interest rates are good, and so on. What you are hearing is an argument about why it's a really good idea to manipulate the price of money. It's very important to understand that. It's manipulation of the price of money. Because if the price of money were not manipulated, the demand for money would determine its price. As more people wanted to borrow more money to speculate on more things, the price of money would go up because there'd be less of it because everyone was borrowing it, which would mean that they wouldn't be able to borrow as much because it would be more expensive to borrow, which would mean that the actual bubbles and the asset explosions and the share market going through the roof and house prices going through the roof wouldn't happen in the first place. Because the natural market mechanism of pricing the money would take care of the problem. But we live in a world where the central bankers have decided on all of our behalves that a very, very cheap price of money is a really, really good thing. Why? So that everyone can borrow more, that's why. So that there can be more credit growth. So that you can borrow and borrow and borrow and borrow and your repayments don't go up, they stay the same even though you're borrowing more because the price of money is going down. But what that leads to is a situation, which is what we've got now, where people have borrowed so much for so long everywhere that the price of money now can't actually go up. If the price of money goes to where it should be, all those people who have borrowed huge amounts of money on the assumption that money is going to be free forever would get very severely burned. So there's no way they're going to do that. So on the one hand, they want to try and make out that they're in control of the situation. In other words, they keep on saying the door is open to interest rate increases. They keep on with rhetoric that indicates that they're in control of the situation, with rhetoric that indicates they actually have choices, that they might actually increase the price of money. But in reality, there is no way they can do it because they back themselves into a corner. Now, we've got a situation where the banks have been showered with money in the name of QE, quantitative easing, helping the economy, helping Main Street, rescuing us from God knows what. They've all been showered with money. And when they get this money, they have a choice with what they can do with this money. They can either take a risk and lend this money out to the real economy, or they can leave the money in the Reserve Bank's account. And if they leave the money in the Reserve Bank's account, they get paid interest for this money. the interest rate, the official interest rate. You see? And if they lend it out into the economy, they take a risk and they might lose this money. So what's happening is, with interest rates really, really, really low, we have a situation where interest rates are being kept really low by making money cheap, by virtue of the central banks flooding the banks with money. The banks don't need to go to you and me and people who have savings and entice us to give us their savings, so that they can lend our savings out into the economy. In a world where they had to do that, they would have to compete with our savings. That would cause interest rates to go up. Does that make sense? The problem is when the Reserve Bank is flooding the banks with free money, they don't need to do that bit. Interest rates can stay low. But you have this massive moral hazard that builds up, in the sense that the banks now have a choice. With low interest rates, do they go out into the world, the general economy, and risk their money by investing in real projects? Or do they basically just stay zombies and earn interest on their free money that they've been given by the Reserve Bank? Which is precisely what they're doing. They are sitting there, not taking any risks, not doing any real lending. There is no market anymore in anything. The price of houses, the price of iron ore, the price of cars, the cost of labour, the price of anything is no longer determined by a market. It's no longer determined by millions and millions of consumers all getting together and all interacting and all deciding what something's worth in real life terms. But when you have financial institutions showered with free money, and they are the ones buying the stocks, and they are the ones buying all the empty houses and the land, and deciding the price of coal and oil and iron ore, where is the market? There isn't one. The market is 100% dictated by what is the central bank going to do next. If the central bank is going to stop showering us with money, all hell's going to break loose, because all of a sudden we've got a market back. If the central bank continues to shower us with money, we can carry on paying more and more and more for all these assets, because it doesn't matter how much they cost. We're getting the money for free. And this is why the central banks can't raise rates, because they have allowed asset prices to get so out of step with reality. Do you know what reality means? No one knows what these things are worth if you mark them to reality. They might be worth 90% of what they're currently going for, or 1% of what they're currently going for. How the hell do you know what they're worth? Because for the past 15 years, there's been no market. There has not been rational decision making between individuals to come to a price. That price is totally fictitious. It's governed not by how many hours you work, how many kids you've got, how many expenses you have, how much you can afford. It's governed by how much free money is sloshing around in the system. And I tell you what, there's a lot of free money sloshing around in the system. The side effect of what they're doing is that the 1% who own 90% of everything becomes the 0.5% who own 91% of everything, becomes the 0.1% who own 99% of everything, and eventually you're going to get to a point where a tiny, tiny, tiny slither of the population, I'm talking about the people who get all the free money, own everything. Now what? Do all the people in the world who have nothing just sort of say, oh, well, you know, that's too bad? Or do they say, you know what? Off with their heads. But I don't imagine that you can just assume that less and less and less can have more and more and more and more and more forever, and that's going to be a stable situation. At some point, it can't work anymore. And the Fed has got itself into a situation where, because they have spent 8 years talking about raising rates without raising rates, we're not talking about interest rates going to 6% or 7 or 9 or 12%. We are talking, for goodness sake, about interest rates going up by 1/4%. And these guys have got to procrastinate about that for 8 years. Are these people serious? 1/4%, and you've got to talk about it for 8 years. You know, you guys actually shouldn't be paid to do this kind of stuff. You guys should be just put out to pasture and actually have some kind of lottery system that just kind of works out whether or not you're going to raise them by 1/4%. It's much cheaper, you know, and you can make the odds so that actually it's only going to happen once every 50 years. Because 1/4% is a joke, and yet it's not a joke, which is the reason why they haven't raised them. And they haven't raised them because they can't. They have created such a distorted system that nobody knows anymore what the price of anything is in real terms. They only know in financial terms. If rates are 1/4%, probably the stock market's going to go going up. So I'll gamble on the stock market. I mean, the Fed and the central banks have even got to the point now where they provide forward guidance. Yeah? Isn't that a lovely term? They provide forward guidance. So you're a bank, you're gambling in the stock market, you've got all this free money. You're going to be given forward guidance, meaning you're going to be warned 3 months out that interest rates might go up. Really? You're busy gambling there with free money, and you're not going to be expected to take any kind of risk, because the Reserve Bank that's giving you all that free money is going to spout all this gobbledygook and give you forward guidance to warn you that in 3 months' time the money's not going to be free anymore. So what you better get doing now is offloading all your bets onto the poor little dumb schmucks out there who don't read the newspapers, who don't understand that this forward guidance is coming, right? It's a way of making it so that the guys in the know don't carry the risk. Because if you don't carry the risk, who the hell cares what you paid for the asset? That's what it's all about. And I don't know when it's going to go poof. No one knows. But I think most people know it's going to go poof.